United States has taken the profits from the Iranian oil. Shah Farari Shodeh, the people cry.
Ever since the revolution of 1979, US presidents have viewed the Islamic Republic of Iran, under the rule of the Ayatollahs, as a threat and as an enemy, and the feeling's pretty mutual.
Iran's leaders have shown only a clenched fist.
آمریکا و انگلیس رو نگاه بکنید. هر جا دیکتاتوری و ترور و آدمکشی است، دست اونها در کاره.
For decades, Iran has fueled the fires of sectarian conflict and terror.
Death to America, Khamenei told the audience, because America is the original source of this pressure.
But what if it was blowback from US policies that helped the Ayatollahs take over in the first place? Americans often ask, why can't Iran have a secular democratic government? Well, they kinda did, and it was the US that helped get rid of that government and paved the way for the Ayatollahs and the Islamic Revolution. You have to go back to 1953 and the coup against Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, who was democratically elected. A former Time magazine Man of the Year, the populist Mossadegh had a great deal of support from ordinary Iranians. He reduced the powers of the autocratic king, the Shah, and nationalized the Iranian oil industry. That upset the British, who had been in control of Iran's oil, and they decided to take action.
We should not allow the biggest foreign asset in Britain to go without doing something about it.
The sooner, then, that he left power, the better for Persia. Not for us, for Persia.
Right. So the British persuaded the Americans, in the form of the Eisenhower administration, to join them in getting rid of Mossadegh.
The British understood the extent of paranoia in this country concerning communism. This was the day of Joe McCarthy, and that the British consciously played on that fear in order to help persuade us to involve ourselves in the coup.
Mossadegh was not a communist, but he did have the support of the country's Communist Party. So the CIA, just 6 years old, swung into action. CIA agent Kermit Roosevelt, grandson of President Theodore Roosevelt, arrived in Tehran in July of 1953 to implement Operation Ajax. Thanks to declassified CIA documents, we now know the details of that plan included persuading the Shah to sign 2 decrees sacking Mossadegh and replacing him with a pro-American general, paying mobs of protesters to take to the streets and start anti-government riots, and funding a propaganda campaign to portray Mossadegh as a pro-Soviet communist.
That mob that came into North Tehran and was decisive in the overthrow was a mercenary mob, had no ideology, and that mob was paid for by American dollars.
By August, Mossadegh had been forced from office and the Shah was back in full control. I owe my throne to God, my people, my army, and to you, the jubilant Shah told Roosevelt and the CIA, as he kicked off a 26-year period of brutal dictatorship, which would end up sparking the Islamic Revolution in 1979. By the way, none of this is disputed anymore. The Clinton administration fessed up in 2000.
The Eisenhower administration believed its actions were justified for strategic reasons, but the coup was clearly a setback for Iran's political development.
But even when US leaders openly admit to the US role in the Iranian coup, they try and play it down. Here's Barack Obama speaking in 2015.
We had some involvement with overthrowing a democratically elected regime in Iran.
Some involvement? Some involvement? Seriously? It may have been a British idea, but the coup itself was instigated, organized, executed, and financed by the CIA. And here's a key point, a bit a lot of people seem to be unaware of. Declassified documents seem to suggest the CIA also worked with hardline members of Iran's Shia clergy, including Mossadegh's one-time ally, Ayatollah Abul Qasim Kashani, the Speaker of Parliament, and they worked with him to help bring down that secular democratic government and bring back the Shah. See, a lot of Shia clerics back then weren't happy about Mossadegh's alliance with the communists or his generally secular outlook, and so both the CIA and Britain's MI6 offered to fund those clerics, including the powerful and influential Ayatollah Kashani. Ayatollah Kashani was a mentor to Ayatollah Khomeini, yes, the same Khomeini who would later topple the despised Shah and found the theocratic and anti-American Islamic Republic of Iran in 1979.
Mossadegh back in 1953. Nobody knows who Mossadegh was. Democratically elected Prime Minister of Iran. He was overthrown by British and American interest because he threatened oil interests of the British. And as a result of that, the Shah of Iran came in, terrible dictator. As a result of that, you had the Iranian Revolution coming in, and that's where we are today. Unintended consequences.
Unintended consequences, or what's known in the intelligence business as blowback. In fact, the very concept of, the very term blowback, was first coined by the CIA in relation to Iran in a secret internal report on lessons learned from the coup against Mossadegh. A coup, remember, that backfired and yet nevertheless became a model for later CIA interventions from Guatemala to Chile. And whether it's coups, assassinations, invasions, more than 60 years later, the US is still in the regime change business with all of the attendant chaos, extremism, bloodshed, and blowback. I mean, the current US administration is talking about regime change in Iran. Again.
Our policy towards Iran is to push back on this hegemony, contain their ability to develop, obviously, nuclear weapons, and to work towards support of those elements inside of Iran that would lead to a peaceful transition of that government.
Are you kidding me? As Michael Morell, a former deputy director of the CIA, has pointed out, not only are you unlikely to be successful, but you're likely to have huge blowback. Yes, blowback. But is anyone in government even listening?